This is Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Mark. And today we're talking about jazz. Eventually. My computer crashed, so this is take 2. My guests are Mike Baggetta from MSSV, among other projects, and Chris Greene of the Chris Greene Quartet. They've both been on the show before, and I highly recommend going back to their episodes to get their full stories. Today I posed a challenge to these guys. What jazz artist or album should I check out if I like a specific genre of music? I get some great recommendations, but more importantly, the conversation goes to places I never imagined. Mike talks about how Mike Watt and Stephen Hodge have helped him grow as a songwriter and a singer, and Chris talks about discovering raw talent in his own family. And we talk about the latest Chris Greene Quartet album and the upcoming MSSV album from Mike Baggetta, Mike Watt, and Stephen Hodge. Check them both out on Bandcamp or on their websites, chrisgreenejazz.com or at Chris Greene Jazz on socials. Mike is at MikeBaggetta.com and MainSteamStopValve.com or at Mike Baggetta on Instagram and MSSV on Facebook. Follow us at Performance ANX on X and Instagram. Our merch is found at performanceanx.threadless.com, or you can support us at ko-fi.com/performanceanxiety. Now get ready to love some jazz with Chris Greene and Mike Baggetta on Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network. All right, it's working. Let's keep our fingers crossed that this keeps going. Okay,
let's do this.
I'm going to try to keep this somewhere where I can see it. If I can split my screen here a little bit. All right, so welcome, guys. Take 2. I will pull the curtain back and say that we did have a technical issue and that my recording program crashed, but it's back up and we're recording now. Wait a second. I'm gonna double check. Yes, we are still recording. Okay, so
all right.
So we've already done introductions. So Mike has just met Chris, and Chris has met Mike. So let's. Yes, it's kind of weird. So let's start where we started, because I think we actually hit on some interesting points, and I don't want people to miss this stuff. So Chris,
yes,
what was it that got you into jazz in the first place?
Okay, well, I was a kid that was pretty much mainly listening to the pop music of my day. Started playing saxophone at 10. Did all the typical band things, concert band. Played in jazz band since I was in 7th grade. Played into high school. Enjoyed it. Didn't really understand it, but I loved doing it. Loved trying to improvise, even though I didn't know what the heck I was doing. Definitely didn't have much of a command of the language. Certainly at the time, didn't really listen to it as intently enough to improvise at a high level in high school. But my band director was really insistent, like, you need to check this stuff out. You've got the talent. You can do something with it. You should check it out. And so and he was always on me about this guy, Coltrane. And I was like, John Coltrane? Like, I've got a record at home. I've got this Ohm record, and which I should say that let me phrase this. I really like John Coltrane's last period. That's just one. That particular album, just 14, wherever I listened to it. So that was my frame of reference. My band director was like, no, that's way too advanced. You need to check out this stuff. And he'd like, go to the library tonight and get my favorite things. And I put it on, blew my mind. It was, a very, really repetitive bass line, which was exactly what kind of like akin to the music I was listening to. Mm-hmm. It was really experimental on top, but it really grooved. And I really fell in love with it. And then I was like, okay, who else does this Coltrane guy play with? And I look on the back of the album, and he said he spent a number of years with Miles Davis, and he played on this album called Kinda Blue. And I was like, Kinda Blue? Huh. Hey, band director, should I check out this Kinda Blue album? He was like, yes, for God's sake, right now, go get it. And so I went and got it and kind of did the 6 Degrees of Separation thing of all the people that were on that album, and then just the love affair was born.
Okay. That's a great way, except for the Ohm part, that's a great way to get into jazz. Mike, I know from our earlier conversation, you had a different opinion of Ohm, but what before we get into that, what got you into jazz?
Well, it's really similar to Chris's story. It just started with a different record. My dad plays guitar, and he had a Jeff Beck record called Wired. And I used to listen to that record a lot. And I remember like when I was listening to it when I was younger, maybe like 12 or 13 or something like that, one thing that really struck me was looking at the back of the record that Jeff Beck hadn't written one of these songs that he was playing on the album called Goodbye Pork Pie Hat. That was written by this guy, Charles Mingus. And for whatever reason, at that time, I thought it was like so bizarre that he would record someone else's song on his record, you know?
Yeah.
And so I wanted to find out who this Charles Mingus was. And I went to a record store and got a Mingus record. And I read the back of that record, and they were talking about other jazz artists and stuff. And I think next I got a Coltrane record called Impressions, which was kind of maybe a compilation of different songs. And then I got Miles Davis in a Silent Way. So yeah, I think that's one of the coolest things about liner notes, you know, going like Chris was saying, like being able to jump from one artist to the next and kind of seeing what kind of thread runs through all this music.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely.
But I have a question for Chris though, because I was going to ask you this before. You said the records in your house when you were growing up were pretty run-of-the-mill jazz and stuff you were listening to at that age. And then how come Ohm is there?
You know, that's a doggone question. Like that's a really good question. Like my dad, I inherited a lot of records from my dad. Like a lot of the records he did have, like the jazz records he had, were probably more of the soul jazz. You know, both my parents were big into like Motown and James Brown and stuff. So it stands to reason that they would probably be more into soul jazzy kind of stuff. But like the few jazz records that we did have were like, it was like those Lou Donaldson late 60s, early 70s soul jazz records. And then
Hot Dog.
And then Hot Dog, Midnight Creeper, and like Ohm, which is a kind of an outlier. But then they also had Time Out by Dave Brubeck, which I remember really enjoying, but didn't hit me the way that my favorite things hit me.
I think everybody's parents had a copy of Time Out.
I think it was standard required for the standard.
Well, my parents definitely didn't have Ohm, that's for sure.
I got Time Further Out.
That's a good one too.
And then their last time out, the live one.
Oh wow!
They just happened to be here on my desk.
But that's true. That's an outlier. I'm not sure why like my dad just kind of skipped over like all that other that 50s to 60s stuff to get to that one. So
maybe a yard sale find or something,
right?
Or maybe somebody just told him, "You need to get some Coltrane," and that's the one he just found.
Yeah.
Well, one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you guys about jazz music is because neither of you are jazz purists or jazz snobs, and I really did appreciate that when you both were on your own episodes, which I highly recommend everybody go back and check out because your stories are very interesting. The music is amazing, and if you like what they're saying in this episode, go back and check them out. Jazz, and we mentioned this before, jazz, I don't know, for the uninitiated, I guess maybe gets a bad rap. And so I thought maybe an interesting way to get people who are a little intimidated by it into jazz, including myself at times, is to find out maybe an artist or an album to check out if you're a fan of a different genre. So, for example, let's do an easy one. Prog rock. If somebody is a big prog rock fan, I know there's all kinds of jazz artists who've collaborated with prog rock musicians. You know, what would be a good artist or album to listen to as your first jazz album if you're a big fan of Yes or King Crimson?
What do you think? That's a good question. I've got some ideas, but I'm interested to see.
I would say Jeff Beck's Wired.
It all comes back to Jeff Beck.
I mean, like, that's exactly what happened to me, you know, in a way. Like, I liked rock music, and so I listened to this rock guitarist, and then I found, there's all these jazz elements in what he's playing. And he's even played a song by a jazz artist, and then I went to go find that jazz artist. You know, I think that stuff exists everywhere, you know.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
You know, there's of course like answers that are, you know, there's the whole fusion era, the F word in jazz. That is like an obvious way to relate to that because there's like, you know, I'm doing air quotes for the audio team now. There's all sorts of like rock elements that get mixed in with jazz, and A lot of times just thinking of it as being instrumental music without words is enough for people to think that it's jazz,
right?
Per se too. So I think there's all kinds of stuff out there, and especially modern music and modern artists that have grown up, like Chris and I did with all this other music behind us. We didn't grow up in the 50s, in the 40s when there was popular music. We grew up with Motown and funk and punk rock and free jazz and all this stuff. So there's artists that are younger than us out there mixing stuff in all sorts of creative ways.
Right.
Chris, do you have somebody in mind that would be a good?
I didn't really give you an answer. Sorry.
That's a good one because it's kind of like a backdoor thing, like you said. It's like a guy who's a rock guy, but he's clearly put his ear on jazz, and he's certainly was smart enough to hire Narada Michael Walton and Jan Hammer, and hire jazz musicians and cover jazz songs. So that's a good one. I mean, kind of like you said, like part of me wants to go the obvious route and say like, the Mahavishnu Orchestra or, the Return to Forever with Al Di Meola, that version. Part of me wants to say that. The other part of me this might be kind of weird and kind of a hot take, as the kids say, but it might maybe Ahmad Jamal, Live at the Pershing. And here's why I say that, because, at least something like Yes has like this section will do this, and then this section will do that, and this section will be in this time signature, whatever. And it's like there's so many mood shifts in, say, like one song in Live at the Pershing that maybe somebody that digs prog rock might dig the dynamics and the shifts, and I don't know. Because it just kind of hit me. I don't know.
Okay.
Is that too goofy?
Well, not for me, because I'm not familiar with them, so I'll have to check that out. All right, let's do one a little bit harder. So if somebody is really into punk music, punk rock, this is right up Mike's alley. Where would you suggest they start with jazz? Maybe MSSV, maybe not. What do you think?
These are really hard questions. There's no way to answer these.
I tried to prepare you. All right, so maybe
I feel like if I say one band or one artist or something, it's kind of shortchanging like the entire idea of music, which is like a really lofty idea for this podcast. It doesn't really have a place in what you're asking.
Go with your gut. Go with your gut. What does your gut say?
But it's really hard to think about it that way, Well, I'll tell you what. I know when I've heard this story from Mike Watt many times, when he was younger and playing with Minutemen, his friend Raymond would take him to hear jazz gigs, and he would play him jazz records and stuff like that. And I think he played him a Coltrane record, and it was, late Coltrane, where there's a lot of free sounds and noise sounds and energy stuff happening. And when it was over, and Raymond told him who it was, John Coltrane, or about who it was, he couldn't believe that he was a jazz musician. He thought, listening to Coltrane, he thought he was a punk rocker. Yes. Because of the energy and the spirit of the music was exactly like the spirit of the music of the movement back in the day. So that's what he says about it the first time he heard Coltrane, that he thought he was in the scene with them because that was that same kind of energy that they were bringing to the music.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
That's cool.
And just completely transferring a different, I don't know. Everybody's when they listen to music, they bring in their own ideas and experiences and biases or whatever. So the fact that he was able to kind of like extract that from that is actually really cool.
Yeah. I mean, I always think of all music as like kind of a mirror, songs are like a mirror. Whatever you listen to is kind of like a mirror. Everybody's got their baggage, good and bad, their own history. And if you're really listening to things, you can find things to have relationships with, I think.
Yeah. Oh. I mean, I guess, for me, but what's my man? What's the guy? I haven't listened to a ton of him, but Sonny Sharrock, like that kind of thing, or even like what you were talking about. Like, I mean, I'm a little biased as we've got Ken Vandermark in our town, so maybe any one of his projects might like, even like the Vandermark 5, maybe like during their heyday, might, if somebody really likes punk, or rest in peace to the great Mars Williams, like one of his projects.
Okay. So with that, it's more about the energy and the spirit of the music than the actual music that's being created.
Right.
What about if someone is really into blues? Blues is your gateway into a lot of stuff. So if blues is going to be your gateway into jazz, who would you gravitate to in the jazz world? Chris, we'll go with you. I'll put you on the spot this time.
Off the top of my head, Sonny Turrentine, Greene, Jimmy Smith, maybe. I mean, heck, you could even the aforementioned Lou Donaldson. You could probably even make a case for like
Jeff Beck.
For right. You could probably make a case for like Coltrane. Maybe not like maybe like Blue Train. Maybe.
Okay.
The Blue Train.
What about that album, Coltrane Plays the Blues?
Coltrane Plays the Blues. Yep.
Hey,
yep.
there you go.
I mean, it's because it's all blues. Exactly. You could make a case for that one. You could make it.
Mike, you look like you were poised to throw that one out there.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like I'm failing this test so hard, so I snatched that one out of the air while I
No. That's a good one. I completely forgot about that. That's a good one.
Well, it's not a test. It's more of a quiz. So it's only going to be like 20% of your grade. So don't.
Yeah.
All right. I know there seems to be a really, well, actually, Mike, I don't even think I let you answer that one. Mike's like,
oh man. I mean, see, like you asked that question and I think like, okay, well, what is the blues? And then the other thing that comes into my mind is what is jazz without the blues? And the first thing I thought of is like, man, jazz without the blues is kind of like fusion, maybe.
Ooh.
Which is a really unattractive idea to me in some ways, like if you take whatever I think of as the blues out of jazz, you're left with something much smaller than what I think of the word jazz pertains in a way. Because when I think of blues, I think of the emotional quality that an artist tries to represent through their music in some way. I mean, yeah, there's blues with a capital B, right? But
yeah.
But even that's like a whole thing that isn't. A lot of people say like there's a lot of blues in jazz, and that can be true. Mm-hmm. But there's also a lot of jazz without blues. But to me, that's the less interesting portion of the music, I think.
I can hear you. Yeah, I hear you.
So yeah. So again, I don't have like an actual answer, but I think it's important to think about. It might be important to think about something like that, maybe.
I never thought of that. That's a good point, though. Jazz without blues could be fusion. I never thought about that.
But then, I don't know. Maybe the worst version of fusion.
Right. Because I mean, that's a good point. I mean, hell, as much as I love Mahavishnu, it's great stuff. It's not much blues. It's good stuff, but there's not much blues there, really.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of fantastic musicianship, and some great songs, but yeah, not a lot of blues there. Right.
Another answer I could give is there's a great John Lee Hooker record, which is, I think none of us would argue is not just straight up blues, right? But there's a great John Lee Hooker record. I think it's called something like Don't Bring Your Troubles by My Door or something like that. I forget the exact name of it. But he plays some improvised solo parts in between his vocals on that album that are like totally avant-garde, crazy, like out of time, amazing playing. Mm-hmm. If you were a jazz musician, you could listen to it and go, whoa, what was that? And as a blues fan, if you're listening to it, you can go, oh my gosh, what is that? And if you just like any kind of music, you can listen to it and have no idea what's going on. Because your perception of what you thought that music was supposed to be like, So that to me is a really exciting idea to have someone hear that.
Oh, cool. Now I'll have to check that one out. I'll look that one up and see what the title is, and after I edit this, because I can't title. Because after I have to play back, don't bring. Let's see. There, I got "Don't Turn Me From Your Door."
That's the one.
Okay.
He's holding his head in his hand.
Yes, I love that photo.
Can't believe what he's playing.
This is so amazing. All right, let's see. So we won't beat this to death, but I do have a couple because they're little off the. Well, I don't know if anything's off at this point.
Go for it.
If you're a country fan, even Beyonce's country album. Wait, shit. Hold on. Let me make sure I'm still recording. Hold on. Yes. Okay. The curse of Beyonce has been broken. So if you're a fan of country, is there a jazz album that you might recommend somebody who just listens to country check out? I don't even care if there's dead air. I will let you guys think about this one for a minute, and whoever comes up with an answer first can jump in.
Well, I can tell you one right off the bat, and it's kind of a plug for a friend of mine, but it's a great record.
Sure.
A great guitarist, a friend of mine named Joel Harrison, who lives in New York City, where I used to live, and he's done a lot for getting music to a lot of people in a lot of different ways. He has a couple of albums called Free Country.
Okay.
And it is just straight up jazz versions of country music, but made a little bit more modernized. There's some more like improvised sections in it and stuff like that. And a lot of great players have been in those bands. I think
is that the name of the band, Free Country?
It's the name of the band. I think it's the name of the albums. It's Joel Harrison. And then if you look up Free Country, there might be like volume 1, 2, 3, something like that.
Okay.
But that would be a really good, easy way, because you hear songs you might be familiar with if you're into country music, and you hear them played in sort of a modern jazz way.
So is he a jazz guitarist in general?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I just looked him up.
And a great composer too.
Okay, yeah, I just looked him up, and it says the first thing that popped up is String Quartet No. 1.
Yeah, exactly. That's his scene. Yeah, writing string quartets and playing great guitar. So
he may also be a gateway drug if you're into classical.
Probably, yeah, probably.
Excellent. All right. Well,
I got 2 for 1 for that one. So maybe
we'll have to make sure we tag Joel in this episode too.
Yeah, please. He's great.
All right, Chris, you got any thoughts on?
Oh man,
we'll do country or classical.
Country. We could do. The only one I can. I might have to go your route with go the Jeff Beck route, or not with Jeff Beck, but I might have to say like it ain't jazz, but it wouldn't exist. It wouldn't exist without jazz. The Ray Charles Modern Sounds of country western music.
That's great.
I mean, it's swinging. The album swings. It's a swinging album, and clearly, like I don't remember who did the arrangements on those, but clearly there's like somebody with a jazz background helped put that record together. Ray or whoever did the arrangements. Maybe that could be somebody's gateway drug. Somebody who likes country, who likes different versions of country songs. Maybe they might take that and travel into some jazz. Maybe.
Okay.
That's the only one I can. That's the only one I can think of, though.
But see, that's exactly what I was hoping for. Stuff like that. It doesn't have to be a jazz album per se, but maybe something that gets you into maybe a bridge to jazz. Maybe that's a better term than gateway drug. I don't know. All right, what do I know, right? All right, the last one I will ask should be pretty easy because not being big into either of these genres, I do see a connection very frequently within these genres. Hip hop. Everybody went silent.
Like go ahead. I'm sorry.
I would, when I'm hanging out with my friends back in the 90s, all these hip hop bands would sound pretty jazzy to me. Like, what the hell is the name of it? Was it Arrested Development? Was that the name of the band?
That was one of them, yeah.
That De La Soul, they would always sound really jazzy to me. And, maybe that was my teenage brain thinking that, but, bands like that were always seemed like they were connected more to jazz than like when Run DMC did the Aerosmith cover. They always seem to be a little more closer to the rock. They had Kerry King from Slayer playing a solo on a song or something.
Oh yeah.
And then, but those bands like Arrested Development, De La Soul always seem to lean a lot more to the jazz side. So feel free to cheat off my paper if you like, but.
No, it's funny. It's funny. Like to your point, I would recommend like the other way. I would recommend say like a Tribe Called Quest so I would recommend that to somebody maybe like a more of a purist that isn't, is trying to get in, trying to come to hip hop or something like that. I recommend, because these guys, these guys sample a lot of jazz. They sample a lot, they sample a lot of the CTI, Creed Taylor stuff, or Roy Ayers or Bob James or whatever. So I might recommend that to them. On this side, somebody that really likes hip hop. I mean, maybe, like I said, like the Coltrane period with My Favorite Things and Ole, where they just these really static bass lines, but there's some really cool stuff going on top. And maybe that maybe, I mean, if they wanted to go into like the funky the funky blue note stuff of the funky prestige stuff of the late 60s, early 70s, because they might hear some of the stuff that got sampled by a lot of the people that they like the Tribe Called Quest and De La Souls and whoever. They might hear some of the stuff that got sampled. Oh man, like something like hip hop. I don't know, even maybe the political aspects of stuff. Maybe like the political bent of like the hip hop of like the 80s and 90s. Maybe like a Sonny Rollins Freedom Suite, or the Max Roach record he made, Freedom Now or whatever.
Oh, Max Roach, yeah.
Shucks. So, I mean, those are the ones that are hitting me now.
Okay. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Mike, you got any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say just go straight to Robert Glasper. Any of those Black Radio albums are like way great.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, he's done as great a job as any, is like just kind of bringing the worlds together. So yeah, certainly.
All right, we've got one extra credit, and you guys can you can decline to answer it if you like, because it's extra credit. You don't have to. What if somebody's just into pop? Somebody who just listens to I don't know, whatever's on the radio, Taylor Swift, or I couldn't even tell you who's popular besides her because she's freaking everywhere.
Yeah,
but like I said, you can decline to answer, or and we can move on. Or
well, this one I would go to my like stock answer, which is like I don't think the music should be divided up this much. Anyways, I don't think people should be intimidated of listening to jazz music if they've never heard it before, or thinking they don't know enough about it to listen to it, or having people tell them you got to know all this stuff to appreciate something. I think that's like part of the biggest problem of all of this. I think if you just have someone listen to something and just, have them just kind of listen to it with an open mind, they're going to like something about it, or maybe they're not going to like some things about it, or maybe they'll be interested to check out more. But I think setting it up with like a warning is part of the problem.
Yeah.
If you can have someone think about it as just like, here's some music to check out.
Right. Like not like, it's funny, like in my, to your point, like in my 20s, like when I was more on my soapbox stuff, it's like, somebody would ask me like, I'm trying to get into jazz. I would, give me 5 records. I should write down 5 records I should listen to. And I would write down 20. And I'd be like, you need to listen to this, and you're not gonna get that unless you listen to that, and blah blah blah.
Right. And they're like, oh man, I'm sorry I asked.
Right. I didn't realize people were like humoring me until I hit my 30s, and I actually saw people's eyes glaze over when I would start talking. I'm like, okay, all right, I got to come up with a better approach. But interestingly enough, my wife is a pretty big Taylor Swift fan, and she probably listens to more pop music. I know she listens to more pop music than I do. But interestingly enough, I'll come, like there've been many times where I've come home from a gig and we got our turntables set up in the living room. She's cooking dinner or doing something, and I'll get home and she's got like, I'm like, is that live at Ahmad Jamal live at the Pershing? Like, yeah. Like, what are you doing listening to that? Like, she's like, I like it. I'm like, really? I'm like, yeah, you put it on and I just can't, I can't stop listening to it. Or we'll be driving in the car somewhere and some Sonny Rollins will come on and I'm just driving. She's like, this is Sonny Rollins, isn't it? I'm like, yeah. Like, how did you know? Well, because I've heard you do things like that. Like, it sounds like she's doing some stuff that you've done, and I was like, oh wow. So and so to your point, it's like it's not like me being what's the word, didactic or whatever, and just like you have to listen to this or whatever. It's just like playing the music that I like, and she plays the music that I like, and she'll play some stuff that I'm like, oh wow, that's pretty cool. Play that, and we're just playing music around the house. So I'll play some stuff. And next thing I know, she's getting a bunch of stuff from Amazon, like, like, oh shoot, like, all right, so,
Columbia House Records.
Right. And it's just like, okay, this isn't my doing. And like when I met my wife 20 some years ago, like she could care less about jazz or had, knew anything about it. And now she can at least like, she knows who certain people are and knows what stuff sounds like and what stuff's supposed to sound like. And, and again, this isn't me like giving her a quiz. This is just me playing music around her and her gravitating towards what she likes.
I think there's probably all these comparable things, right? Like if somebody's a pop music fan and then they really like Ahmad Jamal live at the Pershing, like think about all the similarities, right? Mm-hmm. Melody.
Yeah.
Riffs, repetitive riffs.
Yep.
Great beats.
Yep.
So it makes total sense to put on something like that or whatever, there's all these similarities that happen. And if people can just think about not trying to think about all this other stuff, there's baggage associated with it. You got melody, rhythm, harmony, catchy thing, something interesting. Those are the things that exist in all kinds of music, I think.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. Do you think the fault, because I like what you said about like it's just music, and because I agree with you completely. Is the fault some of our colleagues that make the atmosphere so uninviting? Maybe the fact
100%.
Like rather than just play.
I'm
the
happy
music
to give them some of the blame. Yeah,
right. Like what I'm saying. Like rather than just play the music or play, or try to expose people to music, you try to be like, you need to listen to this, or just like I'm doing, that whole thing that I'm doing you a favor, and it's just that can happen.
That can happen with any music though too. Like if you look at what's that John Cusack movie with Jack Black with the
High Fidelity.
High Fidelity, right? Those guys are doing the same thing, talking to people like you don't deserve to buy this record.
Right.
So it can that thing can happen with anything, but I think for like jazz with a capital J, I think that has happened a lot. I mean, look at the Ken Burns documentary. It's like 30, in my opinion, it's like 30 of the most boring hours about one of the most interesting music ever made in the world, and then to cut off everything for the most part after 1970 as if it's like doesn't fit into the realm of that incredibly long documentary, which on one hand, it's great. It exposes a lot of this great stuff and it gives a lot of background information and it's very accessible to everybody. But at the same time, I don't think that one thing in particular helped the problem of a lot of people thinking of jazz as like, akin to, calculus class or something.
Right.
So it has that aspect, but I think anything does that kind of approaches that zone where it's getting museumified in some way.
Right.
Like for me, music is really fun, and a lot of jazz music is really fun. A lot of improvised music is really fun. A lot of classical music is really fun. A lot of pop music is really fun. A lot of rock music is really, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but there's always these schools that kind of take it a little bit too much, and trying to put that on people that just want to enjoy some music, I think becomes daunting.
Right, I agree, and I've maybe you've had this happen. I know I've had it happen a bunch of times where like my favorite kind of fans or people to play for are people people have come to see us. They'll drag people who are like, I hate jazz, I don't want to come, and blah blah blah. They'll drag them and they'll sit them down and they'll like to watch us. And those people who were dragged end up being your biggest fans and buying all your merch because Like, I didn't know jazz could be so much fun.
Yeah, exactly. They were given the opportunity to appreciate it and to enjoy it without the thing.
Like, I always thought I hated this stuff. I always thought I thought it was this or that or whatever. And it was just so much fun. And you all were interacting and your band looked like you guys were having so much fun on stage. It's just like, that's how it is.
Well,
Or how it can be.
I think you just also hit on an interesting aspect of it is seeing it live, seeing it in person as opposed to hearing it on a record could give you a completely different experience.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, that concludes the quiz portion of the podcast.
Okay.
So thank you guys for participating. Chris, you had an album come out your album came out in October.
Yes.
And it's fantastic. And I'm still listening to it. So I still love Gentleman's Breakfast. And I still love the song that your son helped create.
Thank you.
Emperor Strikes Back is just awesome. I love that song. I think my favorite, and everybody who's interested in hearing how that came about, Chris, you can tell the story again if you like, and they can go back and listen to the original podcast. But let's just go ahead and do it now. How did your son help create the song "Emperor Strikes Back"?
Oh well, he's actually thankfully another beneficiary of playing music around him. And so he's actually, he plays percussion in band, but he's also a really, really good piano player. Not quite yet pushing him, I'm not pushing him to do anything or whatever, but just kind of keeping stuff around him and exposing him to stuff and not trying to push him either way, but he doesn't realize he's a Jedi, but he'll figure out it one day. But that's my analogy. But anyway, he's really talented on piano, and so he's for a minute there he was just kind of said he would do his kind of piano lessons and then kind of sit down and keep kind of come up with these really cool melodies. He would just kind of keep playing them, and I kept walking behind him, telling him like, hey, I'm going to take that and do something with it if you don't do anything with it, and I'm going to take your melody and I'm going to write a song and make a bunch of money, and you'll never see any of it. And it's shut up, Dad, whatever. And so I kept doing that. And so every time he would walk by, I'd be at the piano and I'd actually play the melody back at him. And then one day the creative gods show up, and then there's a chord progression, and there's a bridge, and then you've got a song. And so I figured he was nice enough to let me pester him about this melody that he came up with. So the least I can do is, I did the right thing. He is a registered member of ASCAP. He has his own little publishing company. So we are listed as co-writers of the song. So he is, and I tell him all the time, you are a co-writer on an album by your dad, put out on a record, put out on a label that's been in business for 40 years, that has never before released a jazz recording. And he is completely unimpressed. Completely. But he's 13, so he doesn't care. But he's completely unimpressed.
It'll hit him one day.
Yeah.
Well, I still think my favorite song on the album is "You Don't Know What Love Is." There's just something about that song. It's just soft and beautiful, and it's my favorite.
Thank you. That was a lot of fun to put together too. Yeah.
Mike, you have a new MSSV album coming out. And for those who don't know, MSSV is the project you have with Stephen Hodges and Mike Watt. And it's got so many different aspects to it. And I was blown away by it. Probably even more so than the last album you guys did.
Thanks, Mark.
You start off with the song On and On. And that riff, that whole, I don't know, everything about the instrumental music, the music of that song is great.
Spend life wondering just what to do. I wanna try my best, see what I can do. When the time comes, I'll still be next to you. 'Cause I never had a dream like that.
And I feel like maybe it's just me, but I don't know. I feel like your vocals, you sound more confident with doing vocals. Maybe or you're, I don't know, maybe more excited to. I can't pinpoint it, but I don't. I hear a progression in the vocals, and specifically, it started off with On and On, and right from the very beginning, and I was like, all right, I'm really getting into this.
Well, you know, when I first started playing music, I started playing guitar because of my dad, because he played guitar and it was around the house and stuff. And one of my first early guitar teachers, I remember I learned a song and I went in to play it for him, and I played the guitar part and I sang, you know, and I don't remember what it was. And I remember at the end of the song, I finished and I was like, all right, so what do you think? And the teacher goes, the guitar parts sound really good. Yeah, but maybe no more singing. And so for me, like, you know, 12-year-old me, I was like, oh, I'll never sing again. You know?
Wow.
But yeah, it was really like crushing and like a valuable lesson in what not to do to a young budding musician.
Yeah.
But so anyways, fast forward like 30 years or something, and I'm playing in MSSV, and I'd write songs, and sometimes I'd give some songs to Watt and say, you want to come up with some words for these? And he'd do that. And we made a 7-inch, and I had written the idea of maybe what some of these songs were about, and I sent it, and I was like, so if you want to write some words, here's what I think the song is about. And he sent me back the vocal track, and it was pretty much all the words that I'd written. He just kind of finessed them to fit into the rhythm, how he was going to make it work, you know? And at that point I was like, oh, wait a minute. Am I a lyricist? Can I write words for songs, you know? And I asked those guys if they'd mind if I tried singing with the band, and they were like way down to do it and have me do it. And Watt's been really generous with information about how to use your voice and your throat and your nose and your diaphragm and all that. He and I have talked a lot about the mechanics of singing, how he does it. And then Hodge, of course, he's played drums behind some of the greatest vocalists of the 20th century. So it's really kind of a spoiled situation for me to like kind of start off finding my actual voice in that band with those guys, you know. And then in terms of sounding more confident, we record the album at the end of the tour. So last year's tour was 58 shows, and after that we recorded the record. So I think if you sing 58 shows in a row and then you make a record, it should sound like you feel pretty confident about it.
I would agree. I'm not a singer or a guitarist, but I would agree. So you go from that first song, which it's not a quiet song, but you go into Super Dumb right after that, and that like melted my face off as soon as the transition from the just like the rock sound just to this crazy ass guitar part in Super Dumb. And I was not expecting that.
Good.
And as long as we're going to talking about jazz, I think tiny pipes is what a lot of people think of when they think of like jazz guitar. And that's one reason why I kind of wanted to do this, because it's
that's frightening.
Yeah.
to think about. about Superdome, that real kind of like boisterous introduction of playing, that playing to me, that's really channeling that kind of late Coltrane, Archie Shepp, Sonny Chirac kind of playing, and how it fits into the way I approach certain aspects of my music. Some of those guys that we talked about in this show for sure. And then Tiny Pipes is the only instrumental on this record. They're all singing songs otherwise, but Tiny Pipes, actually, it's funny to mention that. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a cleaner guitar tone, and there's kind of a longer little line that's at play between the three of us. But the chord changes, for anybody who really wants to go deep into the nerd situation and is keeping score at home, the chord changes are based on Coltrane's Giant Steps.
Okay,
so,
cool.
A little seed for people to investigate it.
Well, I told Chris my favorite song off of his album, so I'll tell you mine off of yours, and it's Okay to Change. I absolutely love the bookends on the album. They're my two favorites, but Okay to Change is edged out on and on.
Thanks, Mark.
The way your vocals mirror the guitar line, I think that's awesome. I love that kind of stuff.
When I start acting like your enemy, it's cause I want you to tell me what you see in me. Oh yeah. Well, you don't even like to hear me curse. Well, let me take it up with the universe. Oh yeah.
It's easy for me to start thinking about how I'm going to sing something if I can play it first, because I'm not like an Ariana Grande with my voice or something. Like I'm more of a Bob Dylan who's just going to kind of talk the song down and then hit the occasional pitch here and there. But the pitch thing can work better for me if I kind of get it on the instrument and I can sort of match it up a little bit and kind of figure out what the relationship is between those two things, just sort of in a note way.
Well, when is this album coming out?
The whole album comes out March 7. The first single comes out this Friday, February 7. Oh. And then the U.S. tour starts the week after, March 13th. We go March 13th to May 3rd, all around the U.S., and then from May 29th to June 14th, we're over in the UK and Ireland.
Oh, sweet. Are you coming over to the East Coast at all?
Yeah.
Oh,
what town are you in?
I'm a little outside of D.C.
Oh, we're playing in D.C.
Oh, sweet. All right, I'll have to see if I can get there with my camera.
Yeah, we got the calendar up on the website. And
you going to Chicago?
We're playing Chicago. Yeah, we're playing the Hideout.
Oh,
early April.
Oh, nice. Great venue.
There's 52 shows, so there's a pretty good chance we're going to be somewhere near everybody.
Oh, nice. I was so upset because the last time you toured, last fall, I missed your show. You came to the D.C. area. I don't remember if it was D.C. or Maryland, but I couldn't come and see you because you were playing on my wedding anniversary.
Oh no.
So as much as my wife supports my podcast, she wanted to spend.
I'll have to make a note so that we don't do that again.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. So no shows on October 6th ever again.
Done.
All right. So, well, Chris, where can people find your album, Conversants? How does, I know it's the very first album, jazz album issued by Pravda.
Yes.
How can they pick it up and follow you on social media and see what you're up to?
You can pick it up at the label website, pravdamusic.com, or you can pick it up at my website, Chris Greene Jazz, ChrisGreeneJazz.com, or you can pick it up on our Bandcamp page. Just type in Chris Greene Quartet.
And is it all social media, basically?
Social media, yep. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I just canned my ex account about a month ago. So, but everything else. And
are you playing any shows in the near future?
Yes, actually, we're playing a great show actually in my hometown at a venue called Space. Great, wonderful venue, great place to see a show, great place to play. We're playing there on February 16th, Sunday, February 16th. That's the next big one. And then I think we're playing at Andy's Jazz Club downtown on February 28th and then March 1st, both during the weekend. Oh,
excellent. All right. Yeah. Mike, how can people pre-order the album and follow you and in all your projects? Because you've got a bunch of stuff that you're always busy.
Well, if you want to just know about me, I have a website, MikeBaggetta.com, 2 G's and 2 T's. And if you want to know about MSSV, we have a website, mainsteamstopvalve.com. And mostly we do our stuff through Bandcamp, MSSV at Bandcamp, or Mike Baggetta at Bandcamp. And the label that puts these out is Big Ego Records. They have a website also. And actually, Big Ego Records does a really cool thing called a subscription series. So every album they put out for a year, you can get like delivery of all the albums as they come out for like one price.
Oh, wow.
So it's not just my music. It's all kinds of different groups that my friend Chris Larb produces and stuff. But I always thought that was a really cool way to get music in the mail and you have no idea what's going to come. So you want to talk about being surprised. I always thought that was kind of neat.
I like that idea, man. That is awesome.
Yeah, check it out.
Well, I'm hoping that I accomplished something today. I don't know what exactly. I'm definitely not trying to pigeonhole music. I'm hoping we get people in who maybe didn't think about jazz to maybe explore some jazz. That was the hope, my hopes and dreams with this podcast. So hopefully we've done that. And I do thank both of you for joining me and helping me out with this. And I do think people are a lot more open now than they used to be to listening to different genres. I know when I was a kid growing up, if you went into metal, you pretty much got beaten up. So that's not the way it is anymore.
I hope not. Jeez.
Well, I lived in New Jersey, so I expect. But
I learned a lot. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah,
nice to meet you,
absolutely.
Chris.
Yeah, very nice to meet you too.
Well, I learned a ton, and I've definitely found a whole bunch of new people to check out. So thank you both, and I will definitely put the shows on my calendar. Chris, if you can get over here to the East Coast, I will definitely check you guys out.
Thank you. Yeah, we're working on it. We're definitely working on it soon.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much.